Okay, welcome to You're the Boss podcast show. And today I have a very special guest with me, and that's Eric Woodard. Eric, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ange, it's so great to be here and just so want to acknowledge you for doing this podcast. And I can only imagine the value that your listeners get only all the time. It's very inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's just such a pleasure to have you on. We had a brilliant meeting before this to iron out what we're going to talk about today. And I was just so excited to get back on with you and actually do this live. So really happy to have you on. So Eric, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you?
Yeah, well, I could probably give you the short, medium, or long version, but I'm a high performance career and leadership coach based out of Washington, D.C. I've been coaching for about 6 or so years. You want me to give you the full origin story? Would that be useful? Is that
Yes.
okay? So I know, or Ange, I know you're based in Singapore. I grew up in Bangkok, not very far away from the States, but I lived in Southeast Asia, right where you are, forever and ever. I came to the States when I was about 18, transferred college 7 times.
Right.
Was kind of a lost soul. I wound up as a scuba instructor on Guam for a while, also out in the Pacific. And then my brain got a little spongy. I was like, I got to pull it together. And so I thought, well, speaking of mindset, what would be the most prestigious job I could have? And I said, well, that must be something like the White House.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote a letter to the president and I said, you should hire me. And I figured I'd never hear anything back. Of course, it was about a month before I got the guy from the Guam post office said, Eric, you got a letter from the White House. So I opened it up and it was an internship application. I didn't know what the hell an internship was, Ange, but I was really good at filling out applications because I transferred college so many times.
Yeah.
So I filled that out. I'm never going to hear back, and I didn't, but that got me inspired. I applied to some grad schools. I sort of landed in Washington, D.C. with this big bushy haircut and dumpster diving for furniture. Bought a pair of running shoes, was out running past the White House one day. I thought, those White House bastards, they never even bothered to let me know about that internship thing. So I found a payphone, put in a quarter, called them up, and they're like, man, we're supposed to start in the First Lady's office on Monday. So I was like, I bought a suit, and this was back during the Clinton administration. I went to work for Hillary Rodham Clinton. She was a great boss, and stayed with her. And then I was with her for most of the Clinton administration, moved with her to the U.S. Senate, then the State Department, and then I eventually became director of fellowships and internships at the Smithsonian Institution up until about 6 years ago, where I was like, I told my beautiful, smart trophy wife, I'm like, I'm going to start my own business. And she's like, will our kids starve? I was like, and they haven't starved yet. So,
You're doing something right.
And so I've been coaching ever since. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. So what made you make that move then into coaching? Why did you want to start your own business?
It was a real, it was a real kind of leap of faith. I'd been one of these people that, as long as I can remember, always had that little voice of like, do your own thing. And I'd actually tried, like back in 2008, I had like an eBay business, and, it was just, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. But I'd always had it. And eventually just the voice got so loud that I was like, I can't ignore this anymore. And then it just became, an inevitability. And one of the best decisions I've ever made. Not always the calmest or most comfortable decision, but definitely one of the best decisions I've ever made.
So what was it like transitioning over? Like your wife asked you, "Oh, my kid's going to starve." Right?
My kid's going to starve. And I don't know if she was completely serious, but she was a little bit serious.
She'd been a little bit worried, maybe.
Yeah, well, I always think, I don't know if you'll get the reference, or your listeners will, but I think of the movie, the third Indiana Jones movie, the Holy Grail one, where there's that particular scene where, he's got to find the Grail, and Sean Connery's there dying and stuff. And there's this point where he's got to make a leap of faith.
Mm-hmm.
And he does. And of course, I don't want to give it away, but there's but he winds up okay. And, very often when it comes to mindset, the only way to show ourselves that the thing we're most scared of, we need not be scared of, is to actually like take that leap of faith. And it can be and there's no other way There's
Yeah.
no other way to show yourself that it's possible other than to
Yeah.
literally take a leap off the cliff. That's it.
Yes.
It's the only way I
Yeah.
know to do it.
And it's like sink or swim kind of thing, right? And
Mhm.
then you find the way to swim, right? And I think as
Yeah,
well, like people kind of you have that like a worst case, and it's all in your head, right? And it's a worst case scenario. Okay, what if it was the best case scenario? But you always kind of imagine the worst case, and it's
right,
usually never that, right? Never.
right.
You end up
Well, and that's
worrying.
evolution, right? I mean, that's our amygdala, that's our cave woman brain,
Yeah,
right? It's this thing that's kept us alive for 200,000 years as a species, right? We will always envision the worst case scenario, so we're ready for it. And that part
yeah,
of our brain doesn't care if we're happy, we reach our full potential. It doesn't care. It has one purpose: stay
so,
alive. And
yeah,
so it's just really old hardware, is my
yeah,
experience.
yeah. So how do people get over that? Because that's kind of like your subconscious as well, right? Like it wants to keep you safe.
Yeah,
And, so you're fighting against that. You know what you want consciously, but you're fighting against some things that are going on under the surface that it's like. So what's the secret to what is it about mindset that you can actually
yeah.
get over
Well,
this?
you know, a lot of this is about safety.
Mm,
And we can make our ourselves feel safe in a lot of ways. I mean, it's being around people we love, people that love us, listening to music, it's petting a dog, it's getting enough sleep, enough exercise, all the
yeah,
things.
yeah, it makes a difference.
And that can really calm that part of that scared part of us down a lot.
Mm,
The other thing is, having an awareness about, the issue is never the issue, it's how we relate to the issue. So
yeah.
you and I could both jump out of an airplane. I'm
Hmm.
screaming my guts out and spending the last 2.5 minutes of my life in utter terror. Neither of us have parachutes, by the way. So I'm screaming.
Well,
Yeah,
I'll be
none of us have
joining you then.
parachutes. Yeah, none of us have parachutes. You, on the other hand, are just calm and are like, what a gift. I'm flying through the sky like a freaking bird.
Good.
In the history of humans that have flown through the sky, and the best 2.5 minutes of your life are at the very end.
Mm,
Same set of facts.
right.
The only
Same
difference is how we
situation.
relate to it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
very often when I work with clients, they'll say something like, "Oh, why is this happening to me?" And we do a lot of work and be like, "Well, it could be happening to you, or what if it's happening for you?"
Yes.
And it's really just the way we relate to it is the only
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen is kind of what's going to happen. The only difference is how we, it's what Viktor Frankl taught us, and like it's how we relate to it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it makes such a difference because like when you are running a business, no 2 days are the same, right? For one thing. And then it's up and down and back and forward. It's not a straight line for sure. Right. And you've got to be comfortable being uncomfortable, I guess. And just learning, I still struggle with this sometimes, but it's learning to, when you're in the down cycle kind of thing, ways to keep yourself going so that, then when you go back up and you're like, oh, what was I worried about? But you
right,
were worried, right? So
right.
it's constantly battling that. And you're right, it's the way you look at things and it's your,
Yeah, and
yeah.
and I find there's a power in a certain amount of neutrality. Because I
Mm,
don't know about you, but very often in my business, when I have a really great day, I mean, I feel good. Um, but excuse me, but it's really early here. Sorry, but there's a power to the neutrality, right? Because if we like when we have those up days, if we're like, oh, it's amazing, I mean, we definitely want to celebrate. I'm not saying not
yeah.
celebrate, but
Yeah.
if we're like, if we use that as if we use the external stuff as a source of validation,
Mm,
sure, it's great on the good days, but then on the bad days, it's terrible. Whereas if we let our source of validation be the inside stuff, knowing
right.
that we're fine regardless, whether we have a good day or a bad day, then it sort of hedges against those bad days. Because if our source of validation is inside, regardless of what's in our bank account, like we're good, we can know we're safe.
Mm,
Otherwise, it's just sort of like depending on the weather to determine whether you're safe. And that's
right.
probably not a fun way to be, is my experience.
Right. So how do people work on that then? Work on their inner self?
Sure. Well, one thing I like to say is, so I'll do it with you, Ange, and forgive me, play along. Is like, Ange, how much are you worth? How much are you
Oh,
worth?
Oh, that's a hard question to answer. Oh my God, you put me on
Well,
the spot now.
I'll
How much
answer
money?
it
Go on
I'll
then.
answer it for you if you don't mind. We can't say because there's not enough effing money in the world to pay you what you're worth.
Oh,
Because
I love
that
that.
much money doesn't exist. Same
Right.
for me. Same for
Mm,
anybody listening here, by the way.
mm, mm.
So we never have to this is my belief. We never
Right.
have to worry about our salary or our fee because we can guarantee that people aren't paying us what we're worth because that much money doesn't exist. It hasn't been created. So there's only two real questions. One, who are we going to give the coupon to? And two, for how much? So
Right.
you don't have to spend a lot of time worrying about what we're worth or whether we're helping people.
Yeah.
You can be sure that whatever we're offering the world,
Mm.
like the world's getting a better end of the bargain.
It's a nice way to look at it, right? When I very first started my business, one of the things this was on price negotiation. If you're talking about what you're worth and what people are teaching, paying you, I remember reading a book that basically said, "No, that line that you won't go under. You're
Yeah,
not going to go below that, so that you can
yeah,
confidently walk away and say, 'I'm sorry, I'm not for
right,
you.'" Right?
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
I
there's
think that.
I actually seen this from a lady named Simone Soul. She talked about how there's two lines, like
Mm,
when setting fees, right? There's
mm.
the resentment line, right, which is what you're talking about, but then there's also the puke line, right? And you want to be between those two lines because if you say a fee and it makes you puke, now here's the thing on this, Ange. If you puke and you swallow it again, that doesn't count. It's actually got to leave your face. The puke has to leave your body,
Okay.
right? And if you puke that much, then you're probably saying a fee that's too high, right? More
Right.
than yeah, if it makes you if the vomit ejects from your
Freaks you out.
face, that's
Yeah.
too high. Right. On the other hand, if you say a fee and you're just like, like in terms of resentment,
Yeah.
okay, so you're going to want a higher fee. As long as you're anywhere between those two lines, you're good. You're
I
good.
love that, I love that. Yeah, it's definitely you've gotta be prepared. Yeah, you gotta know what you will not take, right? And 'cause it is
Right.
resentment. It is resentment.
Right.
You begin to resent the people you're working with. You're thinking, "Well, you're not paying me enough money for this."
Well, and you
Right?
won't serve them as well.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
disservice. I mean,
Yes.
sometimes when I talk to potential clients, they're like, "Hey, I would be doing you a disservice because if I accepted that
Mm,
much, I would resent it
mhm.
and like I won't do that. Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do you that disservice."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also it's not judging the client also on what you think that they'll pay you. 'Cause you can be
Sure.
so wrong, you can be so wrong, right? And
Yeah.
also sometimes people test you. I know when I was running my copywriting company one time, I had this, client who, asked me to quote for editing his book. So I gave him a quote, and I thought it was a fair quote, right? It
Yeah.
wasn't extravagant, it was just
Sure.
a decent quote. And so he came back and he said, "Not everybody else that's given me a quote is 3 times cheaper than you." And I was, "Well, I'm sorry, that's my price, and that's I've given you a fair price. I'm not coming down on it. If you wanna go with someone else, then go with someone else cheaper, but I can't compete with those prices. This is the price, right?" And then 5 minutes later, I received the signed quote.
Yep. I'm not surprised. Because because like in those situations, what I'll do is be like, "Oh yeah, yeah. Well, let me explain that.
Mm,
Nobody does what I do the way I do it.
mm, mm, mm.
So thank you for noticing that other people are charging less. Yeah, I mean, and so I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So it's being confident in.
That goes back to
Mm,
that mindset stuff, right? If as
mm,
long as
mm.
we're really clear
Yeah,
on what we're going to take a stand for,
yeah,
um, yeah,
yeah,
I mean, it gives that, frankly, that gives, going back to what we're saying about safety, that gives people safety,
yeah.
right? Even if I'm an outlier and I'd be like, hey, thank you for noticing. Nobody does what I do the way I do it. And I'm going to take a stand for that. See, that
Mm,
gives people safety because the only way you would take a stand for that is if you had yourself a lot of safety and that makes other people feel safe.
yeah,
Leadership gives people safety.
yes.
100%.
It gives them the confidence that you're the person they actually do wanna
Yeah.
work with, right? Yeah.
Yeah. No,
It's so.
nobody ever followed anybody else into battle thinking, well, I think my fees are okay. Or let me change my stuff. Like, that doesn't happen. That doesn't give people confidence, in my
Oh,
experience.
dear. Okay. Yeah, I think it's something that comes also, I think, with experience. If you're just starting a
Right.
business, perhaps you've got to go through this a few times to realize, okay, this is the way the game is played sometimes. And it's sometimes you get red flags. You can talk to somebody and then you begin to recognize, okay, this is the way this person is. I'm not going to work well with this person. So then you can decide not to take that on because it's gonna give you a world of pain down the road if you do,
Yeah.
and it's not worth the money that they're paying.
Yeah.
So, knowing that and being able to catch those red flags and know who you are and who you can serve and
Yeah.
who you
I
serve
I I
well,
think that's
right?
true. I'm not sure, did you see the series Ted Lasso? Do you know the show? Did you ever watch this show? It's okay if
What's it
not.
called?
Ted
No,
Lasso?
no, no.
Okay. Well, there's this particular scene, and he's actually in the UK, where Ted Lasso's this guy from middle part of America, and he's playing darts in a pub, and this other guy who's very, he's got his own darts, he's very, he's a good
Okay.
Englishman, right? He's got his own darts. Um, but Ted Lasso turns out to be really good at darts, and they try and hustle each other, and Ted wins. And you wouldn't think that this guy from, with the funny accent, he's really good at darts. And he quotes Walt Whitman, this quote, "Be curious, not judgmental."
Mm,
And and what I find, and it goes back to mindset, is very often when people are living in the land of the knowing, it's really limiting. I
mm,
know somebody will pay this, or I know that they
mm,
won't pay this,
mm.
as opposed to living in the land of, right? Because, and for those of you who are listening, I just put my arms in the air. So, as in, I don't know. Right. So, because knowing is the enemy of learning. See, as soon as we know stuff, you can just hear the doors and windows closing in terms of
Mm,
possibility.
mm, mm,
Whereas if
mm.
we live in the land of, that's where possibility lives. Now, look, if we're trying to make an airplane fly or cure COVID, we're going to want some people in white lab coats that know some stuff. Yes. And for the vast majority of other things, there's so much greater power in curiosity and the not knowing.
Yeah.
And we don't like that oftentimes because that's pretty ambiguous, and ambiguous can be scary, and it just wants us to us go in the cave and put the rock in front and stay safe.
Mm,
And it's the opportunity.
mm. Okay. Okay. So for someone just starting, okay, going back to how you felt perhaps when you first
Yeah.
started your business, I'm not sure how much fear you had because
Oh, I was
it sounds
consumed
like
by fear.
really? Because
Oh, absolutely.
okay. All right. So
Yeah.
how did you yourself then go through that and how did you push to the other side?
Yeah. Well, it was a lot of, I mean, frankly, it was a lot of faith. I mean, you could say faith with a big F or a little F. Faith, same difference, right? I mean, it was a lot of faith. It was a lot of being comfortable being uncomfortable. And it was also like I remember at the time I just experienced a lot of fatigue with talking about it. Right? Just talking about it and thinking about it. And I think I finally got to the point where I was just so fed up with just thinking about it and talking about it that I was just like, screw it. I'm just gonna do it. Well, what if
Mm,
something bad
mm,
happens? Then something
mm,
bad will happen.
mm.
Right?
All right.
I was more committed to action than I was being safe.
Yeah.
That's
I
really what
think
it
that
took.
similar to me, I think it was I didn't know what I didn't know was one thing,
Right.
right?
Right.
So
The
I
not
didn't know
knowing,
anything.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't know what was ahead of me. Um, so that was one thing. So I didn't have the fear for that because I didn't know, right? If I'd known more, maybe I wouldn't have done it. I don't know, but I didn't know enough. And then when I was in it, it was, well, I'm not giving up. I'm not giving
Right.
up. This is gonna succeed, and there's no other
Yeah.
way. There's no other way I'm gonna make this work, right?
Yeah.
And
There's
then
a, you know,
mm,
no, 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 I don't want to interrupt you. Please, 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 please.
so when I left, my job and went full time, that was scary because it's like, okay, now it's on me, right? Now it's on me to get the money in, um, feed my family, make sure there's
No
a roof
safety
over
net,
my head,
right?
right?
Yeah.
So, and it's all on me to do that, right? So, and then I got my first office because I got my first staff. So then it became, right, this isn't a job for me anymore. I haven't just created my little job. I'm hiring people. I've got to get an office. That changes things as well.
Yes, it does.
And then we don't realize that as you're growing, I suppose, as you're pushing those boundaries, you're extending your comfort zone, right? As you get used to the unknown and you get used to what you weren't used to before. I remember my first office cost me $1,000 a month. That was the price I had to pay for the
That would
rent.
have that would have been that's a great deal today, right?
I know. I would kill for that today. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's my point, is that I ended up with
Yeah,
an office that was 4,000 a month, and I just look back and I would give anything for $1,000 office.
right,
So it's
right.
what seems scary at the time, you move past, right? And it's
That's
not
right.
scary. When you look back, you're as what was I worried about, right? A lot of the
100
time.
I mean,
Mm,
you offer so much there, Ange. I mean,
mm,
and what I really hear there is, when you have an office and you have people working for
mm,
you,
mm.
now it's not just, "Oh, am I gonna be able to feed my kids?" It's, the people that are relying on me, and that's a
Yeah.
whole and that's, and I've experienced that too, and it's there are levels to this, and, I'm reminded of this idea of the zone of proximal development. So
Mhm.
some, people may know this as the Goldilocks zone, right? So we tend to move from an inner circle to outer circles,
Right.
and it's gonna be different for different people in different situations.
Mm,
A guy named Russian guy 100 years ago named Vygotsky did a lot of work on this, right? But as we move, like as our zone of proximal development expands, what was hard a year ago is now easy, and what will be easy a year from now is now hard, right? And as we move out, and that's going to be different in different areas. Um, but the interesting thing about that is the only place where that develops is discomfort.
mm,
Right? That's where
mhm.
growth happens. Growth
Yeah.
is uncomfortable. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not if we're comfortable, we're not growing. If we're
Exactly.
terrified, we're not growing either, right? If we've gone too far. It's gotta be
Yeah.
that Goldilocks zone of, "This
Right.
feels uncomfortable." That's where
Yeah.
we're growing.
Yeah. And also you don't necessarily notice how much you've grown, because it's a
That's right.
gradual thing, right? Until you look back and suddenly realize. I mean, I have another story on that. I did this, what do you call these things? This HIIT exercise, the HIT
Hit. Yeah, 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 sure.
exercises, right? I downloaded this thing from YouTube where it was a 31-day challenge. Right, I'm up for this. I'm going to do this. Day one killed me. Got up the next morning, could hardly move. Right? Day two, carry on, right? And then continued on. And then I was on probably about day 15. Then I went on, right? And then one day I was on day 22 and I put the video on, but by accident, I clicked the wrong video. And I'm doing it, I'm thinking, this is really easy. What's going on here? It's really easy. Then
There's
I
that
realized
one.
I put on day 2 instead of day
Right.
22. And
Right.
I was so happy then, because I didn't realize actually how far I'd come in those 22 days.
Yep.
That this
It's
was suddenly,
beautiful.
I'm doing this going, I'm not feeling anything. This is easy, right?
Yeah.
And then realize, okay, I'm on the wrong day. I'm on day 2.
No,
Yeah.
it's beautiful, and
Yeah.
that happens only everywhere.
Yeah. And day 2 at the time when I was on day 2
Oh, it
was
killed you.
really hard,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's, you don't realize until you look back, okay, how far you've actually
That's
come.
right. That's right.
Right.
There's a guy, Ben Hardy, and I'm forgetting the other. Dan Sullivan wrote a book called "The Gap and the Gain,"
Mm,
right? Where people often look forward to like, what's the gap?
right.
What's between me and where I want to go, and very often they fail to look behind and be like, okay, where have I come from? So,
Yes.
yeah, that's
Yes.
exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And also it's like when you're, I suppose, like looking at other people, or when you're training other people, perhaps when you've got your clients as well, is understanding where they are in the process.
Right.
So that, so again, I've got a story with my daughter where, um, in primary school, she really struggled. In secondary school, she excelled, but in primary school, really struggled to work within the system, their system of learning. And she got to secondary school, and I got called in to the school, and they called her in, and there's me and her sitting down opposite these two teachers. And one teacher had just turned to my daughter and said, "Can you explain your marks?" And I just hit the roof. I was just I was shaking. I was so, ooh, she just hit the button, right? Because like my daughter had struggled all the way through primary school, but she passed the end of year primary school exam. It's the only exam she ever passed at that point. But she passed the right exam because that got her
Right.
into the secondary school. Then she
Right.
gets into secondary school, end of term, they take all their exams, and she failed the maths exam by half a
Yep.
point. Half a
Oof.
point.
Oof.
And they said, "What's gone on here? Why have you failed?" And I just, "Do you know anything about my daughter? Do you know what's happened to her? Do you know where she's gone wrong?" I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
"Mm." And it
Yeah.
was just the fact that she had done so well, and they were showing me all her marks, and I was going, "I'm happy with those marks. She's actually got really good marks here. She should be celebrated for what she's done."
Yeah.
Right?
No,
So
it's all relative, right? And
mm,
again, it goes back to what we were saying about how you relate to the issue is the issue,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
It can be like, "Oh, these are terrible marks," or "These are fantastic mark." And again, it's just how one relates to it.
yeah.
100%. 100%.
Exactly, and where the person actually is in that
That's right.
process. So as we're coming up to the end of this, then Eric, where can people find you?
Yeah, well, I jump around on the internet, but right now I'm at winatwork.io, right, is the
Okay.
website. And again, especially for people who are trying to figure out job stuff or, either figure out their next job or figure out the one they have.
Mm, mm,
That's what we help people do. And I've got a few business people on my roster and a few coaches. And yeah, we sort of help people with limiting beliefs and all that stuff, as I know you do too, Ange.
yeah,
So I really
yeah,
acknowledge you for
yeah,
just doing this podcast. I think it helps a
yeah.
lot of people.
Yeah, that's what the purpose of this podcast is, really to help people understand that they can, if they want to, they can make that leap.
Oh
And
yeah,
it's not just for other people.
that's
You
right.
know, I was the same when I very first started, before I came to Singapore. It wouldn't have crossed my mind to start a business. Wouldn't even enter my head, right? And
Yeah,
it's the people that you surround yourself with as well
right.
that helps,
Yeah,
because I wasn't in a community in the UK of people who ran businesses. So it just didn't occur to me. When I came to Singapore, everybody I knew was
everybody
running
did.
businesses, right? So then it was a
Yeah.
case of, well, if they can do it, I can do it too.
Yep. I mean, anybody can, and it's and I think I think it's no coincidence that few people do because it can be scary, and the opportunity for all of us is if people can give themselves enough safety in their own mind
Mm.
and take that leap of faith, it winds up not being nearly as scary as one might think, yeah, after you do
Exactly.
it.
I think that
Yeah.
is the golden ticket to take away. It's never as scary as you think, and
Yeah.
you'll be glad you did it in the end,
Yep.
usually, right? You'll be glad you did it. And then even if, it's a learning journey whichever way, right? And you learn
Absolutely.
from, if it doesn't work out first time, you learn from that.
Well, and
And
we very often, Dan Pink's written about this. We very often never regret the things that we don't do,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
We very regret that we very often never regret the things we do because if we give it a shot, then at least we know what happens. It's
yeah,
when we don't give it a shot,
yeah,
then we'll never know what could have been. And those are
yes,
the things we often regret.
yes, yeah.
Take the shot is almost always the better way to go.
Yeah, and there's always a reason why something happens, and it's gonna deliver you something better along the road.
Absolutely.
I think so. Yeah. Okay, Eric, so thank you so much. I'll put the link to your website under this and wherever people are listening or watching this, and they can contact you. And it's been such a pleasure having you on, and we must definitely keep in touch.
Sounds great, Ange. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening to the show today. And if you've liked what you've heard, then do subscribe to the channel wherever you see it, wherever you're watching it. And if you're on YouTube, ring the bell so that you can get notified when we upload another episode so you don't miss the episodes as they come up.